This is the User Adoption Podcast with your host, Henrik de Gyor.
Who are you and what do you do?
Hi there, Henrik. Thanks for having me. So my name is Tabetha Sheaver, and I am the CEO of a company called Plus Delta 314, and we specialize in user adoption, primarily around technology projects related to Microsoft. So everything from communication and awareness to training, all the kind of people side and the change management components of technology projects.
How are you involved with user adoption?
Well, it's really what I do every day. So I work for everywhere from Fortune 500 companies down to mom and pop shops, really helping them put together their strategy around what needs to be communicated, how does that integrate with any project plans that they have. We do a lot of education on what change management is and some upfront assessments to identify, how many changes are you asking people to make at any given time, and trying to help them kind of make some decisions about how do we make sure that we're not throwing too much at the user so that they can actually make sure that they do adopt and that they do use these systems that they're so heavily investing in. So not only have I been doing it and living it every day with my company, but it's just a topic I'm super passionate about. And so I actually speak at a user group. One of them is Microsoft Dynamics Communities has what's called a CRM UG. And so I've spoken at a number of conferences specifically on the topic of user adoption, primarily in relationship to CRM and to ERP applications. So I live it, I study, I speak about it. Maybe someday I'll write a book, but I'm just not quite there yet.
Tabetha, what are the biggest challenges and successes with user adoption?
So I think the biggest challenge with user adoption is that there is so much to take into account. You're dealing with individuals. Each individual has their own personality and their own style. In addition, each individual has their own roles and responsibilities. And so that's a lot of moving pieces and a lot of moving parts. And you have to understand that there's basically kind of 5 motivators, 5 ways that people show up, and 5 reasons that people do the things that they do. And so if we can think about writing communications to drive behavior in a way that motivates people based on their personality, based on their roles and responsibilities, then you get much better buy-in. That's a challenge, though, because that's a lot of variables and that's a lot of things to try and cover. And so I think that's the hardest part. I think the most important thing, or the thing that I find most successful with user adoption, is when you spend the time up front to develop the plans, to develop the strategies. It really helps you think through kind of what that end user's experience is going to be, and to make sure that you're covering all your bases along the way. So I really like to run pilots and to capture all the things that we didn't catch or we didn't think about before I actually go live with any user adoption plan or program. That's been really successful. But for me, I find success when my users are not pulling their hair out, they're not frustrated, they're not talking negatively about the IT group that's doing the implementation. That's really what user success looks like for my side. The 5 motivators are really interesting because everyone will pretty much tell you what kind of a person they are in the first kind of 5 to 7 minutes that you have a communication with them. And so the way to remember this is by thinking of your hand. So if you start with the thumb, there are thumb people. These are status. So these are people who are motivated by status. And if you think of thumbs up, they're the ones that are looking for the attaboys, that you're doing a great job, you're better than somebody else. Or, they get the thumbs down and then they're really upset. And so that really motivates them as status. The next is, if you think about the pointer finger, these people are motivated by security. And so these are the people, if you point your finger forward, they're the ones that are going to point blame and shame at people, like, I didn't do it, this person did it. Or they're going to give you the I'm number one, I got this, I'm feeling good, I'm feeling safe, I'm feeling secure. The middle finger is just what you would think it is. It's power and autonomy or control. And so these, if you think about, when somebody cuts you off in traffic, what do? You throw the middle finger up. And that's really a an aim to take back power and control. So people who are really power and autonomy motivated will need to be communicated in a way where they feel like they are in charge and that they have the autonomy to do the things that they need to do. And so if they're motivated by that, that's going to be very different to motivate them to actually use a system or to drive some behavior. They don't want you to tell them, hey, we've done all this for you, we've figured it out. They want you to say, we know that you're smart and you're going to go and you're going to take care of this because you're just the type of person who takes control. So the next one is relationship. So that's your ring finger. People that are motivated by relationship are the people who are typically stopping and asking the question, well, how is this going to make Sally feel? Or how is this going to impact Joe down the hall? People that are motivated by relationship, again, they care more about the people side of things. And then the last one is your pinky finger. And if you think of like you used to do pinky promises when you were a kid, the pinky finger is justice and it's like social causes. And so I've only actually ever met a couple of people that are pinky finger people. And they're the people who really care about causes and is this fair and is it equal? So equality, justice, those sorts of things. So the reason I teach those is because you can see how if you're trying to get somebody to do something, if you understand what it is that motivates them or drives them, it really changes how you communicate with them. And so in user adoption, especially in like larger scale rollouts, you might not know that about every single individual, but it is pretty easy to sort of segment people and sort of stereotype people. And you can say, a lot of times salespeople, for instance, tend to be more in the status category. Certain people, maybe in HR tend to care more about the relationship aspect. I know it's a broad generalization, so I'm not saying follow that to the T, but if you can start thinking in terms of why do people do the jobs that they do, it's usually because they care about one aspect or one area a little bit more because that's sort of their natural motivator. And so if you can communicate to them those benefits and how that helps them fill that need in their life, then you're more likely to connect with them and therefore in turn more likely to get them to change their behavior or to use a system or adopt a change. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope that's valuable to all you out there who are having to do some change management and some user adoption initiatives.
Tabetha, what advice would you like to share with people working on improving user adoption?
Yeah, I think that the part that I see most frequently in organizations that it just pains me to no end is that everybody thinks they're really good at communication, and it's not to say that they aren't, but good communication is what drives user adoption. So in organizational change management, there's a number of steps. Practitioners of organizational change management say that 63% of all change management is communication. So what I see happen a lot of times is in the planning stages of a project, they might build in the communications, the strategy, the training, and almost inevitably that's the first piece that gets cut or gets pulled back. And so the advice that I would give is actually switch that around. Spend more time planning, spend more time doing the communications, and because you have to communicate, you'll figure out the technical things that need to happen. You'll figure out the approvals and the process things that need to happen. And so my advice would be really to flip that and to not cut out the communications planning, the communications development, and that strategy component that needs to happen early on in the project.
Tabetha, where can we learn more about user adoption and your work on the subject?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a website. It's plusdelta314.com. And on there is my blog. So my blog is creativebeautifulworthy.com. But you can get to my blog from plusdelta314.com. So would invite you to check that out. I try and post, I've got the 5 motivators out there. I try and post on just, best practices at least 3 to 4 times a month. And so, anytime I learn something, I try and share it, and would love for you to go there and follow me.
Well, thanks, Tabetha.
For more on this, visit useradoptionpodcast.com. Don't forget to please subscribe, rate, and review. And for a book about this, check out useradoptionbook.com. Tune in next week for the next episode. Thanks for listening.